Hey there everybody, Mark Bates here. In this little video I want to show you some cool kind of rendering tricks that we can do with the rendering package inside of Buffalo. So the rendering package is actually pretty straightforward. When we designed the Buffalo context and the way it should be, we decided not to implement a bunch of rendering on the context, but rather to have a nice interface that we could write, or anybody could write their own kind of rendering engines and what have you to it. So we're going to look at actually how to do that in just a minute, but I want to show you first some cool kind of rendering tricks, particularly with rendering HTML, but we can look at some other stuff as well. So I've got a very basic Buffalo application here, and I'm doing two things. I'm rendering a template and I'm rendering a layout around that template. So you can see here the name of my layout is template/application.html, which is the default. And then I got hello from template/index.html. So if we look at index.html, we can see that H1. And if we look at application.html, we can see we were printing off the name of the file. And we've got a yield. And what yield will do is yield is going to take the contents of index.html. It's going to insert them into this template and return it. So pretty simple. So this you've probably seen this already. If we look at home here, the home handler, we've seen this a lot. This is kind of the default generic home handler that gets rendered when you generate a new Buffalo application. So we're going to use the HTML function in the render package. We're going to say render index.html. And in the render.go file inside your actions, you see that we've already predefined the HTML layout to be application.html, and that's how that all comes together. That's great. So let's talk about now, what if I want to use on my home page, say, a different layout than the rest of my application. This is a pretty common use case where your home page has a very particular look and feel to it, but once you get inside your application, once people log in, that has its own look and feel. So how do we handle that? Well, a lot of people don't know that when you call render HTML, you can pass an additional argument to it. And this additional argument will be an alternate layout. So I've created an alternate layout called alt.html, and you can see it here. It's the same thing as the application layout. I just changed the name inside of it. So now if I go back to my home page and I hit refresh, you can see now that I've got a different layout. And that's it. So that's all I needed to do. I changed the layout for that one particular request. In 9.091, you'll actually be able to pass n numbers down and they'll all kind of wrap within each other. But not in 090, just in 091. That's coming down in a couple weeks. So there we go. That's cool. That's how we show an alternate template. Easy. Okay, so next little trick. Someone asked in Slack the other day, how do you render a 204 no content using Buffalo? Well, it's actually really, really simple. I'm just going to comment out our current render here, and I can do return crender 204, and then instead of passing a renderer, I can just pass nil. And Buffalo is going to know that it's going to render nothing except for whatever status code you give it. So here I've got an application called Paw that I love, absolutely love this application, have nothing but good things to say about it. But if I hit the endpoint now, you can see I'm getting a 204 no content, there's no body, there's nothing in there at all. So that's it. That's how you do a 204 no content. Okay, so the last thing I want to kind of quickly talk about is creating our own custom renderers. So like I said earlier, we very particularly said we are not going to define every single possible renderer type out there because that's just crazy. But what if your application wants to render CSV or PDF or whatever format you need to render your data to? Well, we can implement the renderer interface, which is a very, very, very simple interface. Contains two functions. The content type and then a render function. So let's go back to our application here, and let's create a new renderer. We'll call it My Renderer. Here, it's gonna be very simple, and we'll have a func on it called content type, and that returns a string. So I'm gonna have to return text/custom. I don't know, just something weird. And then we have my render, which takes a render, has a render. It also needs a render function, which takes an IO writer and some data from the render package here, and that returns an error like such. So I don't know, we'll do something very simple here. We'll say K through V for our data here, because it's just a map. What we will do is we're going to write to our writer kind of key value pairs, right? So very simple like that. And we will return null. So let's see here. Oh, yeah, we can't use that type. So let's wrap that in a byte. Okay, so there we go. So we're just gonna do kind of new lines of kind of key value pairs, right? So down in our handler, let's set some data on there. So we'll say name is Mark and Buffalo is awesome, because I think we could all agree on that. And then we'll do an instance of my renderer. So now if I go back to paw here and we hit it, we still rendering a 204, sorry. Let's render a 200 instead, that seems better. So there we go, we've rendered a 200. If we look at the raw, you can see we are in fact doing key value pairs of literally everything that is in the context here. So whether we want that or not, let's just look at the text here. You can see the text is doing exactly what we want. So, and if we look at the headers, the content type is text custom. So there we are. We're able to kind of very quickly create our own renderer. Now, like I said, this could be a PDF, it could be CSV, could be whatever we want it to be. But in this case, it's just a very stupid text list. So that is it. I just wanted to show you a few quick rendering tricks you can do in Buffalo. And that is it for now. I hope this helps. This video was brought to you by Gopher Guides. If you're an organization, conference, or user group that is looking for Go training, please visit gopherguides.com. All training is custom designed to match your educational needs.